get ready. The next 24 hours hold a turning point. A force is moving, and once it enters your field, it doesn't ask for permission. It doesn't announce itself. It simply arrives and shifts everything it touches. If you begin to feel a strange tension rising, a sudden urge to act, or an emotional wave that comes out of nowhere, the energy is already near. This isn't random. It's a moment of release, when everything that's been repressed demands to be seen, spoken, and felt. Mars squares Uranus. This is the aspect of action, breakthrough, and raw power. It doesn't tolerate delay. It doesn't wait for logic. It triggers motion, fast, unexpected, often explosive. Even one stray thought or emotion, something you've suppressed or held back, could now ignite change. Everything you've hesitated to say, to do, to end, may surface, not gently, not politely, but directly, powerfully. Because this isn't chaos, it's truth. And truth, when ignored for too long, doesn't whisper. It erupts. But here's the warning. Waiting it out won't be enough. This isn't energy that quietly passes. It needs direction. It needs grounding. Because if you let it move blindly, without awareness, without intention, it will blur the lines between what still matters and what's long overdue for release. It may tear things down indiscriminately, not out of cruelty, but because it has no filter unless you give it one. There is a choice, a single internal anchor that can turn this storm into a breakthrough, rather than a breakdown. That anchor will determine who takes the wheel, you or the energy. And I'll speak more on that soon. But for now, remember this. Tonight carries a threshold, a crossing point. It can bring chaos. It can bring clarity. It can expose everything that no longer fits. What this night becomes will depend on one simple thing, your inner choice. Mars square. Uranus is not an aspect of quiet reflection. It's a jolt, a discharge. It doesn't give you time to think it through or weigh every outcome. It acts fast, raw, and without filter. If you've been holding too much inside, emotions, decisions, words that were never spoken, all of it may suddenly start moving, seeking release. Even memories or desires you thought were long buried can erupt in a single action, a single word, a single reaction. This kind of energy doesn't arrive gently. It crashes in. It reminds us that movement doesn't always follow a plan. Sometimes it doesn't knock. It breaks the door down. Starting around June 14th, you might feel it. The air thickens, the atmosphere charges up. Time feels faster, and tension, once easy to silence, becomes louder, more pressing. Everything you've been suppressing starts to feel too tight, too sharp, too much. That's the sign. The energy is already in motion. And by the night of June 15th, it peaks. Not just a moment, a flashpoint, a surge where whatever is unstable may fall apart. Mars gives impulse. Uranus brings disruption. Together, they create the perfect storm, the kind that pushes you to take a step you never imagined you'd take. Say something you've been holding in for years. Make a choice that's been simmering quietly in the background. Or, just as easily, destroy something that could have been saved if only you had paused. But that's the thing. There is no pause. This energy doesn't wait for your permission. If you don't channel it consciously, it will take control. So here's what truly matters. Chaos doesn't come out of nowhere. It appears when energy moves without grounding, without clarity, without direction. Which is why the most important part of this day isn't the external event. It's how you respond to it. And that's where the real choice lies. the one mentioned earlier. It's not about suppressing your emotions. It's not about unleashing everything, unfiltered. The real power is in the pause before the reaction, the breath before the storm, the moment when you ask yourself, am I acting from power or from chaos? That is the key. If there is no inner foundation, this energy may carry you to places you never meant to go. It may awaken fears, anger, and pain you thought were long behind you. But if there's even one point of clarity inside you, one place to ground yourself, then even the wildest wave becomes usable. Then what destroys others becomes a push forward for you. So no, it's not written in the stars. It's not decided by the aspect. It's decided by how you meet this moment. Because when power meets a person, there are always two choices. Let it break you, or let it forge you. And that choice can't be made in theory. It can only be lived. In that split second when you realize the energy is here and you are its point of entry. Sharp words, sudden breakdowns, things falling apart, not just machines, but decisions, emotional flare-ups, physical tension, mental overload. These aren't just a string of coincidences. This is what the energetic field looks like when it's overflowing. When a person's inner energy becomes stronger than their usual sense of control. Everything that once held itself together through patience, compromise, and repressed emotions starts to shake. The balance sustained by silence and restraint begins to crack. What was once held together by the force of holding it in might no longer hold. You might notice even the calmest people turning sharp, as if all politeness, diplomacy, and restraint are stepping aside, making space for something more real. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. It could be authenticity. Finally, speaking after a long silence. Sometimes, an outburst isn't destruction. It's a confession. A first step out of an inner cage. It's the moment someone finally says, enough. I can't do this anymore. Or maybe they say nothing at all. They just get up and walk away toward a space where their own energy isn't suffocated by someone else's expectations. Days like this make time feel compressed. One conversation can resolve what's lingered for months. One mistake can cost more than usual. But one breakthrough can change everything. The acceleration happening in the field feels like it's shifting timelines. Decisions come fast. People shift before your eyes. And what surfaces isn't what's been prepared. It's what's been hidden. That's why reactions feel unexpected. They're not calculated. They're emotionally charged. They come not from the mind, but from the body, from pain, from buildup. Everything that's been bottled up simply no longer fits inside. Sometimes the body expresses it first. Sudden blood pressure spikes, panic, insomnia, a sense that something is pulsing, tightening, or shifting inside you. That's not random. The body senses energy long before the mind understands it. That's why, in times like this, you must be radically attentive to yourself. If you crave silence, give yourself silence. If you feel restless, move, but move intentionally. Channel the surge in a way that doesn't harm others, because if you don't choose how to direct the energy, it will find its own way, through conflict, breakdown, glitch, accident, or crisis. On days like this, everything happens on edge, on nerves. And that's why one truth becomes essential. What's breaking out now didn't begin today. It's been forming for a long time. This energy just lifts the lid. It doesn't make you someone new. It simply exposes what was already there. So when someone around you suddenly breaks down, lashes out, yells, or walks away, don't assume it came out of nowhere. In that moment, the dam finally burst, and the current, built up over months, rushed out. But here's the catch. Energy doesn't discriminate. It just moves. It gives you the impulse, but not the direction. Only you decide what that energy becomes: destruction or liberation. To speak in anger or to speak with clarity. To act from impulse or to pause, anchor yourself, and then act. That difference might be invisible on the outside, but inside, it changes everything. Because that's what determines whether this day becomes a breaking point or a breakthrough. And that is the paradox of intense, energetic days. Danger and opportunity arrive in the same form, and only your internal state decides what it becomes for you. There is one thing that determines whether this day becomes a flash of chaos or a step toward liberation, and it's not strength, not willpower, not a quick reaction. All of those are consequences, but the cause lies elsewhere. It's intention, that inner point from which you move. Because when everything speeds up, when the space around you stops being stable, it's your why that becomes the anchor. It's the one thing that keeps you steady in the whirlwind. If you enter this energy without grounding, without a purpose, without a clear sense of what you're doing it all for, the energy begins pulling you in every direction. Every emotion, every spark, every irritating noise. And suddenly, you're not the one acting. You're the one being acted upon. But if even one inner direction appears, one clear thread that comes from the heart, from meaning, from honesty, the energy changes. It's still powerful, still wild, but now it begins to listen. It's like the strongest wind suddenly catching the shape of a sail, and it can only carry you where you are ready to go. That's why, on days like this, random action is dangerous. Even one careless word can break something, but one conscious word can heal. The energy that overwhelms others becomes your strength when it's fueled by purpose. You don't need to suppress anything. You don't need to pretend to be calm. You can be fire if you know where it's burning toward. When intention becomes your axis, everything around it begins to organize. Even the most unstable external conditions start guiding you, not knocking you off course. People feel it. The space responds. Clarity arrives faster, and most of all, the sense of threat dissolves. Because once you know why you're here, you stop fearing what could go wrong. And this is the quiet secret hinted at from the beginning. The one essential condition you can't miss. Not force, not control, not willpower, but direction. That's what defines whether this day will be a breaking point, or the moment you finally move toward what you've long desired but never dared to begin. And here's what matters. Intention is not a to-do list. It's not a schedule. It's a felt sense inside you that doesn't depend on external circumstances. It's the honest answer to a simple question. Why am I doing what I'm doing? If that answer is alive in you, then even the biggest wave becomes part of your path. But if that answer is missing, even the smallest thing can throw you off course. Intention is not just a sentence in your mind. It's a compass in your soul. It's a vector that stays with you, even when everything around you spins out of control. And if you hold on to it, if you don't lose it in the chaos of the day, then you'll see. Even the most unexpected events start to align. The chaos becomes movement. The tension becomes structure. And even if the day isn't easy, it becomes yours. Not random, not destructive, but real. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to meet anyone's expectations. You don't have to maintain false harmony or pretend to be calm when you're not. This is not a time for performance. This is a time for truth. Not the loud kind, not the convenient kind, but the quiet, honest truth that lives inside you and has been waiting to come out. You're allowed to be many things: angry, uncertain, exhausted. But in moments like this, honesty matters more than ever. Even if it's just one breath deeper than usual. Honesty in your words, in your actions, in your number, in your silence, if it's real. Mars squaring. Uranus is not an aspect for masks. It doesn't tolerate pretending. It tears off what you've been wearing for too long but no longer want. It brings to the surface the words you've been holding back, the moves you've delayed, the decisions you've hidden behind fear. And if you try to run from it, it will chase harder. Because this energy doesn't like escape. It senses fear and amplifies it. But the moment you stop, not externally, but internally, and say, I'm here, I'm ready to see what's rising, everything shifts. When you stay at the center of this energy and breathe through it, without destroying yourself or attacking others, the pressure begins to lose its threat. It becomes fuel. Yes, it's still intense. This isn't magic. It's a raw current running through you. But you're no longer resisting it. You're letting it move you. And it only leads in one direction, where you are truly alive, where you're not pretending, where you're not suppressing, where, maybe for the first time in a long while, you choose yourself, not from ego, but from inner truth. You may choose to end something today, not because you're tired, but because the time has come. You may begin something, not because you should, but because your soul can no longer stay silent. You may finally cut the threads that held you in place and take a step, even if it's your first, even if it's terrifying, even if it goes against everything others say. Because in this aspect, what's around you doesn't decide. You do. And even if the world feels unstable, stability doesn't come from outside. It is born within, in the moment you choose. This day isn't about noise or disaster or destruction. It's about permission. Permission to be. Not to control everything, but to guide yourself. Not to suppress your anger, but to turn it into momentum. Not to endure, but to finally listen. Not to destroy, but to transform. Because chaos doesn't come to break you. It comes to show you that the old forms no longer hold. And this energy has no interest in punishment. It has only one purpose: liberation. If you're ready to meet it, it will become your power. If you resist, it will keep knocking again and again. But in the end, the choice is always yours. You don't have to be perfect, but you can be real. And that is more than enough to walk through any storm and come out the other side not broken, but free, not fearful, but awake. Sometimes the world doesn't speak in words. It speaks in circumstances, in accidents, in emotions rising from somewhere deep. On days like these, reality feels closer than usual, stripping away the excess, asking just one question: where can you no longer live the old way? Where are you done holding back what's been longing to come out? And where are you finally ready to be yourself, even if the world isn't ready for it? Many seek quiet, but some need power. Not to destroy, but to wake up. Because not every transformation comes in silence. Sometimes it demands fire. A will not to control, but to align. Align with your truth, in action, in words, in choice. And if, in a night like this, you stay present with that feeling, if you don't hide, don't shrink, don't lose yourself in the chaos, but hold one clear line inside you, I know where I'm going. Then the energy starts to listen. The world begins to see. And even the sharpest turns become a turn in your destiny, not just random noise. This is not about force or fight or pressure. It's about your inner compass, the one that still works even when everything outside is dark or unstable. That's what makes this energy creative, not destructive. That's what turns pressure into breakthrough. Because a flash is not always a catastrophe. Sometimes it's a signal. Sometimes a chance. Sometimes the moment when finally the world sees you. And if you are ready in that moment, to be honest, to be real, to be fully alive, then everything changes. Not instantly, not easily, but undeniably, and forever, the world doesn't speak.